Very good evening. Jai Shri Krishna Guru. Thank you for joining the Bhagavad Gita Satsang, the way of life as described by Lord Shri Krishna to Arjuna. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Shri Saraswataya Namaha, Om Shri Guru Dattatreya Namaha, Om Shri Mahalakshmi Namaha, Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. We'll be continuing from chapter 5, the Yoga of Action and Knowledge, and we will be learning about Jnana Yoga or the Yoga of Knowledge. So we have completed till verse 12. So let us begin chapter 5, verse 13 onwards. The self-controlled Sankhya Yogi, doing nothing himself and getting nothing done by others, rests happily in God, the embodiment of truth, knowledge and bliss. Mentally relegating all actions to the mansion of 9 gates, the body with 9 openings. So what is the Lord telling here to Arjuna? He's saying the self-controlled Sankhya Yogi, which means somebody who has attained, the control over their mind, body, senses and the gunas. Now he's saying in the earlier verse, the Lord has described that he who acts offering all actions to God and shaking off attachments remain untouched by sin as the lotus leaf by the water. Now in the earlier verse he says the Sankhya Yogi who knows in reality of things must believe he does nothing even though he is seeing, hearing, touching, etc. And what does he do? Holding that it is the senses alone that are moving among the sense object. So the gunas are performing in the gunas and the senses alone are moving amongst the sense objects. So it is not him who is performing any action. But what is the knowledge that he has? The knowledge that he has is I am the divine, I am the spirit, I am not the body. What is he saying? The self-controlled. Who is the self-controlled Sankhya Yogi? Who follows the path of Jnana, that is knowledge. He deciphers God within, in his mind. I wouldn't say in his mind, but he contemplates on God, he deciphers God. He has understood the truth and he's also have achieved something called self-control. He has been able to control his mind, body, senses. He has attained that control over his body, mind, senses, and he has transcended the gunas, you may say. But if he falls off the path, then we can't say that. The self-controlled Sankhya Yogi, he does nothing, doing nothing himself and getting nothing done by others too. Neither he does nor he gets any work done by others too. Rests happily in God. That is, rests happily in God means what? The embodiment of truth, knowledge and bliss. What is this known as? Sat Chid Anand, which is truth, knowledge and bliss. Mentally relegating all actions to the mansion of 9 gates, the body with 9 openings. The 9 gates, the body with 9 openings. See, the body has to, like we eat, this is one of the gates, right? And then you have 2 ears, 2 nostrils, then your, organs of excreta. So those are the 9 gates through the 9 bodies. They have to perform their bodily functions. But he himself is not doing anything. He has given up all attachment to actions. He has attained the self-control. Now, what is he saying here very importantly? See, if you look at Ramana Maharishi as an example, Ramana Maharishi was lost in this Satchidanand state. He was so deep in that state that even if his body was eaten by the ants, he didn't have any understanding. And if they fall off, his body had some wound and the ants would eat it. And suddenly he's lost in this state of that nothingness, right? It's a blissful state. But obviously they don't have the understanding that they are the body or they are living in this material world, nothing. So for them, nothing affects. So when the ant was eating that wound, it fell off. So Ramana Maharshi would pick that ant and again put it back on that wound. So people would feed him little bit. People who have seen him, they would just feed him a little bit, just so that the body is sustaining. And please remember, they have nothing. They don't need food. They don't need water. Nothing. In that state, they are lost in that Parabrahma. They have achieved the God realization. They are in that state of Sat Chid Anand, truth, knowledge and bliss. And they know that they don't have to do anything, nor they are expecting to get some work done by others. That is the state. This is a perfect example of Ramana Maharshi. And please remember, Ramana Maharshi never even spoke as well. He didn't even talk anything. They hardly spoke. It was just rare, but his way of imparting knowledge or communicating was very unique. You just sit in front of him, he just has to look at you. That knowledge would get passed on. That is the power that they hold, because they have gone beyond the mind, body, senses, and they transcended the three gunas and Maya, which is delusion of the material worldly existence. They have realized God. They have become Parabrahma themselves. They are the enlightened beings. So here, the self-controlled Sankhya Yogi. But what did Ramana Maharshi do? He practiced. He was sitting in Tapascharya in that cave for many years in silence. So how did he achieve it? Through self-control. That is the tapas he did. Tap means what? You are burning. You have to do tapascharya. Tap means you have to burn. You have to burn all that, that is there. And that is what they sit and do through the path of knowledge, or their own meditation, contemplation, and they're sitting in that one place for years together. It's a very difficult path. It's not everybody's cup of tea, and that is why Lord Shri Krishna in the beginning itself gave the answer to Arjuna. Of the two paths, the path of karma yoga is very easy to achieve. You can't achieve the path of jnana because you need to have that kind of control. What is required? Self-control over your body, mind, senses. Imagine, right now, in India, right now in Bangalore or in Tamil Nadu, it is pouring, especially in South India. There are flood, there is rainstorm, everything is happening here. Do you know what? Just a little cold. We wear 2 jackets. We are wearing, we can't just walk barefoot, so we are wearing socks. We are staying in that comfort. Our senses, get affected so easily. Imagine these sages, saints, they sit in the cave which has different weather conditions. They are not bothered. So what is that they have overcome? That senses, they are not affected with their senses, body, mind, because they have been able to control. They have been able to achieve that control. My Guruji, I've given this example many a time. A year back, we went to Rajasthan in December. We were very cold. It's a time where it's very chilled, And of course, I was wearing multi-layer clothing, 2 sweaters and all that, because it was really freezing. And when we used to walk out, during the daytime, it's still cold. But when I would touch my Guruji, his body would be warm. And his body will switch temperatures. When it is hot outside, his body will become cold, and when it is cold outside, his body will become warm. How have they been able to achieve? What is that difference? That is because they are not the body. They have this perfect understanding, I am not the body. They have that control, that self-control over the body, mind and senses. And the 3 gunas, they've anyway transcended. And the perfect understanding is I am not the body. So that is the control we have to achieve. But do you think in today's day and age, is it possible for us to achieve? We can't control basic things in our life. The most stupidest things. Just a cold. Oh, I'm like, oh God, I cannot get up. Why? It's raining. I don't want to go in cold. I'm walking in the cold weather. So my Guruji asked, have you seen all these sages and saints? They're sitting in the Himalayas. They have to wake up in like 3:30 a.m. They don't sleep, but they're always in that. They're doing their meditation, tapas, whatever that they're doing, right? They're practicing. But every day at 3:30 a.m. in the morning, in freezing cold, it is -degree. They will go to that river, the chill water. They have to bath in that. So my Guruji asked, would you be capable of doing that? I said, no, I'm not. I really cannot. Why? Because we have limitations. We are attached to this body, mind, senses. We think it is not possible. But that's the level of sadhana one has to do. It is not such an easy thing. But when you understand the truth that you are the divine being, you're not this body, you have to transcend, and that comes with practice. And you should be able to achieve it. That self control is what you have to bring in. And then you are not going to feel any cold or anything, right? And they will have to live with whatever the basic, fruits, whatever that's available for them to sustain their body. They are not looking at tasty food. Oh, today, Guruji, today you make something nice, it's very cold. So make something warm, hot. Feel like eating this, feel like eating that. We are so much pampering our senses, titillating, all our palate. But do you think it's possible for these saints? They don't care. They live without food for years and they take one breath a year maximum. That's the level of sadhana they are doing. They're practicing. They're sitting there in one place for years together and doing tapascharya. Are you capable of that? That's exactly what my Guruji asked. So why are you just trying to say, oh, I don't want to leave and go? He's like, we all want to run away because we don't want to work hard. Hard work is very difficult, The moment you have to strive hard, we don't want to do anything. It's the same thing even in the material world. We think material world, there's, spirituality is escapism from material world. Actually, it's not. The path of spiritual is even more difficult because what you think you can achieve in the material world, we want all quick results, everything fast. But the same doesn't happen in spiritual world. In spiritual world, everything happens very slow. You need lot of patience. And patience is the greatest virtue on the path of spirituality. That is why Sai Baba has said, Shraddha, which is faith, and patience, saburi. You need to have lot of saburi. It doesn't work the way you think it works. And the amount of effort that you put is what the result is going to be. The result is equivalent to the amount of effort that you put. Nothing is going to come here on platter. Please remember, Arjuna is being taught by Lord Shri Krishna. Do you think he's learning, or is Lord Shri Krishna saying, okay, I'll just do some magic and all this knowledge is going to be within you? See, the knowledge definitely is within us. But what is the Lord doing? The Lord is just uncovering that ignorance through the light of knowledge and teaching Arjuna what is right in this world. How should you live the righteous life? How do you live how do you perform your swadharma following the path of dharma? That is exactly what Lord Shri Krishna is teaching to Arjuna. But do you think Arjuna is understanding? No. We are in chapter 5 and yet he has questions, yet there is doubts. You know what? I was telling yesterday to my Guruji, Guruji, I don't know how Lord Shri Krishna is teaching the same thing which he has taught everything in one chapter called chapter 2. Had Arjuna understood this knowledge that Lord Shri Krishna had imparted to him, the Bhagavad Gita will not have gone beyond chapter 2 at all. Chapter 2 itself, we would have understood everything and we would have done our duties to the highest of our ability, God-given abilities. But the reason why we have to go through till chapter 18 is because Arjuna didn't listen. Arjuna never understood. Rather, listening is one aspect. Yeah, he listened, but he didn't understand. Why? Because his mind was so strong. His attachment to his body, mind, senses were so strong that he was unable to overcome it. So what is required? The effort. It's, Lord Shri Krishna in chapter 2 itself, he taught Arjuna saying, strive to practice the yoga of equanimity. What does that mean? Arjuna, you be self-control. He's exactly taught all of this. But do you think Arjuna understood? No, he couldn't. That is the reason why Lord Shri Krishna had to teach. He's repeating the same lesson in different ways. There is nothing that he's saying. The entire Bhagavad Gita can be summed in 3 words. Just do it. What is today missing? The doership. We are unable to do our duties. Even this morning I was telling my Guruji a very strange thing. I said, I don't know what is it I'm going through. On one side, I look at you, you're such a dynamic being. You're all the time so focused. You're doing things. You don't have likes or dislikes. It's just a job. The body has to perform its duties. And you're, enacting a role to the highest of, you're beyond, to the highest hilt. But I would not say abilities, because I will not even say that word to my Guruji, because he's the Lord himself. So of course, he's the highest of everything. He's a personification of all personification that exists. Whether it is goodness, whether it is to do a job, whether it is in knowledge. Like Lord Shri Krishna himself says, there is nothing to be attained by me or unattained. He's the master of everything. So looking at my Guruji, many a time I say, you know what, I'm just feeling bad that I'm not able to live up to you, because you're to even match you is next to impossible. That is what Lord Shri Krishna is all about. He's perfect in everything. He's only one who's a perfect being. Nobody else is. Today we are all laid back. We are doing things at our own time. We don't care about time. Time itself is the biggest question mark. We don't care about the time. We think there is a tomorrow. Yeah, everything will fall in place. Or we will compare and we'll feel very small. Look, the world is doing. Why is that I'm not able to do? What is happening to me? You go through this yo-yo, this dichotomy in your world. What to do, I don't know what not to do. All these things are just, irritating your mind. You're confused. Like Arjuna, we are also confused in our world. We don't know what is life all about. We are going through this miserable existence. We don't want this suffering. See, the life itself is a battle. Living your life is itself a battle. The battle has to be fought within and outside as well. In the three realms, in the three world, you have to fight. In the material plane, in the within, and in the spiritual domain, the world beyond. In that world also you have to fight. There is no place where you can say, oh, I'm just going to be peaceful, happily ever after. That doesn't exist. And we think somebody's life is better. What happens? People post all the nice things on social media. They create a perception for others. And you look at those sweet pictures, all the nice, cute postings, and you think, look how happily people are living. Look at my life. I am a miserable human being. But have you even seen? All that they're showing is only for the world. That is not their life. That is not the truth. So my Guruji will always say, don't go and fall for what you see. That is not the reality. That is not the truth at all. So he'll say, people just project. That's just a make-believe world. You want to create a perception in somebody else's mind. So you're putting all those sweet, cute pictures of yours. But reality is not that at all. Please remember, even if Sri Ram were to be born, or Sri Krishna, they all had to go through the Mahabharata in their life. They had to fight, they had to go through so many challenges. But we'll say, what? I'll always tell him, you're Lord Sri Krishna, he's Sri Ram. How does it matter? They all know, they are capable. So he'll tell me, oh, does it mean that Sri Ram didn't have to go for Vanvas? 14 years he had to go into, he had to go with his wife and brother, for 14 years to the forest. And then his wife was kidnapped by Ravana. And he had to fight the war to bring back his wife. Imagine how painful it is. And even Sri Ram did cry when Sita, his wife, was kidnapped. So my Guruji said, even though he's God Almighty, having manifested in a body, he has to go through the prarabdha karma of that body. See, but please remember, there's no karma per se to the divine beings at all, because they are already they are God themselves. But when they take a body, they will have to go through the process. That's it. But having the perfect knowledge and understanding, they perform their duties to the highest of their ability, because they are God themselves. So you think they can falter? No, they don't. They will not as well. They are the epitome of perfection. So whether it is Sri Krishna or Sri Ram, they did their role, they played their role to the highest, highest of the perfection. You can't pinpoint a mistake or error in their, the performance. They were so good in performing that role. And you know what? This is why we say it is a Leela. Why it is a Leela? They come in sport. It's like a sport for them. The Lord creates this universe very playfully. He's actually playing. So when we understand the truth, and there is nothing to feel bad or sad or happy, you will do everything in love alone. That is what my Guruji does. Having that perfect understanding, he does all the duties, all the jobs, in love alone. He doesn't do it with hatred or anything. He understands that the world, the people in the world are all ignorant beings, covered through, because they're all deluded by Maya. They're covered through ignorance. So no matter, even if you give them this knowledge, they are not able to understand. So my Guruji says, the Bhagavad Gita, the teaching what Lord Shri Krishna is imparting, is not for everybody. It is only for select few. It's for one person. He'll say, I just need that one person to whom I can impart this knowledge. Like Lord Shri Krishna is imparting this knowledge to Arjuna. You know, but Arjuna, it takes him 18 chapters to understand and to fight the war. It's not such an easy thing. So we all have to fight our life and somehow be able to overcome and do our duties, not being attached to anything. So he's saying in this case, the self-controlled Sankhya Yogi, he does nothing at all. And neither he gets work done by others. He perfectly understands. He's living in that oneness, in that state of Satchidanand. And then what does he do? Relegating mentally, means he mentally has relegated all the actions to the mansions of the 9 gates of the body with 9 openings. So he knows the body has its actions to perform. He is mentally relegated. So what is the Lord is telling here? He is not attached to any action. He is not dwelling in that action or that object. The day you become detached, you're just a tool. He has understood that his body is just performing whatever that action it has to perform, whether it is eating, whether it is to listening, and whether it has to, do it, you have to go and do its ablutions, whatever that it has to do, it is doing all that. And you have to, if you eat, you have to, go and attend to a nature's call. That is an action which the body is performing. He is not saying, I have to attend to the nature's call. No, he has understood. That is what he is saying. Mentally relegating actions to the mansions of 9 gates. The body with 9 openings. That's what he's saying. So what does it mean? He knows he's not this body. He's that divine being. He's in the perfect state of oneness, in the state of Satchidanand. Having this understanding, he is completely out of that. Then there is no attachment. He doesn't even have to do anything, even though his body performs those actions. So let us continue with chapter 5, verse 14. God determines neither the doership nor the doings of men, nor even their contact with the fruit of actions, but it is nature alone that does all this. What is he saying here? He's saying something very beautiful. He's telling God determines. God doesn't determine neither the doership nor the doings of men. He doesn't determine anything, whether who is doing or who's, the sense of doership, who's taking that doership. He doesn't determine anything. He's not the one who's defining at all. That's exactly what he's saying. Nor even their contact with the fruit of actions. Nor even their contact with fruit of actions. What does it mean? See, any action that you perform, at the end of the day, there is an outcome. There is an end result. And here, when that end result is there, some people are attached. You come in, whatever that action you perform, you have an end result. So everybody is attached to that fruit of action. But he doesn't care about it. Nor even their contact with the fruit of actions, nor even their contact. Even if you come in contact with the fruit of their actions, it is not his concern. It is not within his purview. What does it tell you? It says, but it is nature alone that does all this. It is his Prakriti who is the doer. It happens under the domain of his Prakriti, not by God. And this is something we fail to understand. We attribute everything to God. See, the reason you need to attribute is simply because you should not have that ego. Look, I did it. I gave somebody. We are nobody, okay, to give or not to give. My Guruji has always taught us one very important lesson. See, at the end of the day, the Lord is the one who gives and takes it away as well. Why are we thinking that we are the one who's doing it? See, our duty is to do alone. The Lord uses his instruments in this world to serve his purpose. So if somebody has to get something, he's going to bring another person who will be used to provide that something to someone. But if the individual think that I am the one who's giving, I am the doer, this is mine, I have worked so hard, I have earned this $1 billion. If he thinks like that, then there is a challenge. But what does it say? Now, none of this happens by God. God doesn't determine anything. But who does it? But it is nature alone that does all this. So his Prakriti is the one who does all this. So everything is under the domain of Prakriti. So never attribute any doership to the divine Lord. The Lord is not the doer at all. See, he's only a substratum. Everything happens under his substratum alone. He is a substratum of everything that exists. But he is not connected to any of the actions or the, whether you are the doership, nor, whatever the actions you're doing, nor even the fruits of the action. That is what he's saying here. but his nature does all this. It happens in the domain of Prakriti. And whose nature is it? It is Lord's nature alone. So let us continue. Chapter 5, verse 15. The omnipresent God does not partake the virtue or sin of anyone. Knowledge is enveloped by ignorance. Hence, it is that beings are constantly falling a prey to delusion. Again, it's the same thing. He's saying it in a slightly a different manner. What is Lord Shri Krishna telling here? The omnipresent God does not partake the virtue or sin of anyone. The God is omnipresent. He is everywhere and He is in everything. Whether I'm speaking to you right now, the words are of His wisdom alone. He's using this body. God lives in everything, animate and inanimate both. So the omnipresent God does not partake the virtue or sin of anybody. Whether you do good or you do bad, how does it matter? Does it mean that God is going to be very happy? Oh yeah, we go and tell, look, I did all the good in the world. Yeah, some people's nature is to do good, so they will do good. Like my Guruji will say, I know everybody's nature. Some people are born with that sattva guna, so they will always be sattvic in nature. Sorry. So they will always be sattvic in nature and they will do good alone in this world. So that doesn't mean that God is mighty pleased with them. No, that is their nature. So they will do that. And some people born with Rajas or Tamas are going to be mean. Some people are going to be very, they're very arrogant, egoistic, or they think no end of themselves. They think they are the greater than God on this planet Earth. And people with Tamas will do all wrong things. They might say bad things, insult, do all the wrong in the world. But does it mean he's going to partake of either someone's virtue or sin? No, both he doesn't partake at all. Why? Because he knows those individuals are driven by the nature, their nature, inherent nature. So how should it matter to God? God is omnipresent. The omnipresent God does not partake the virtue or sin of anyone. He doesn't partake of it. Please remember. And so what happens? You are the one who's going to get back. Whether you do good karma, whether you do virtuous action or sinful action, at the end of the day, you are the one who has to face the repercussions. It is not going to be happening in this life, but you have to be born again in some other life to get that repayment. Either you have to repay or you have to get that repayment from someone else who you are in that karmic loop, in the bondage, with whoever the person might be. It could be person, it could be an animal, it could be anything. So it is our karma alone that is going to determine. So the Lord is not going to partake of anyone's virtue or sin. Please remember, it is you alone who is going to suffer for it in your future lives. So that is why we say this body comes with its prarabdha karma and it is a repayment. Whether it is good karma or bad karma, whatever that we have done in our previous births, we bring certain things in this life of ours. That is why the association of with certain people, certain events happen. It could be favorable, it could be unfavorable. We don't know. All those things we see, we say, why does God does this to me? Here Lord Shri Krishna is very clearly explaining, God is not the doer at all. Who does it all? But it is nature alone that does all this. It's very clearly explained. Then why do we blame God? Have you also seen people in this world, when something nice happens, they will attribute all that good to themselves. They will take credit for everything that is good that is happening. They say, look, I did this, I worked really hard, that is why I was able to win, this project. Whatever they might say, whatever that is there, all the things that is good that is happening is because of you. Anything bad that happens, it is because of God. God does bad to you. This is how we human beings think. But here he's saying very clearly, the omnipresent God does not partake the virtue or sin of anyone. So where is the question of God doing something bad to you or good to you? He doesn't. At the end of the day, when you go to the divine Lord, he's just standing there and saying nothing. He'll only say, all his Ashtasiddhis will say tatastu to whatever you ask. Please remember, so be very careful what you ask as well. He's just standing there and doing nothing. He just knows everything happens for good alone. At the end of the day, he's just blessing. But he cares about all of them. And whatever the right thing that has to happen, that only will happen. It's not how you think life is all about. You can go ask n number of things, but at the end of the day, he knows what to give you. What is due to you will anyways come to you. The supreme master, the great God, is very kind, he's very benevolent, he's very compassionate, he's very loving. We never understand his way we never understand at all. And this is something that you need to realize. And once you realize, you will never attribute anything to the divine Lord. And especially when things go wrong in your world, we attribute, God, you're so mean, you did this to me. Why will God be mean to anyone? Say, why is God going to do bad to you? He is on the contrary, doing all the right things for you so that your life can be very beautiful. He's removing everything that is not favorable in your life. See, many a time I've understood one very beautiful lesson. When we go through certain things in our life situations or certain challenges or certain events, both especially the unfavorable ones, we think, why is this happening? Why God? Why am I in this situation at this moment in time? That is the thought that comes. We always ask God this question, why me? But one very important lesson which my Gurudev's, my Guruji's Gurudev, his Guru, Lord Dattatreya, answered years back, 12 years back. And that time he said, always remember this one very powerful lesson in your life. No matter what situation, what happens, always believe that it is happening for the good alone. There is something that's beautiful that's going to happen. You might not know at that moment in time, but much later in life you will be able to understand. This is what Lord Dattatreya had taught me. And since then there is no looking back. No matter what situation I am in, you just need to have faith and patience. These two words is what he said, which is what Baba also says. Shraddha and Saburi. Have that and you will evolve. You will go a long way. But don't lose faith either in your Guru or in God at any point in time. And this is a very powerful lesson. So please remember, no matter what happens in life, everything happens for the good alone. So God wants something nice for you. So that is why He is making you go through that. Again, He doesn't physically do anything. When I say these words, please remember, you are in that situation of your own karma and of your own nature. But the kind Lord, and He's already cushioned your life. So be very grateful to Him. Thank Him because He cares a lot about you. Because of His love for you, He takes so much care of you. Not even your own parents will do as much as a Guru or a God does for you. So be very grateful and thankful. Don't become an ungrateful person at all. So let us continue. Chapter 5, verse 16. In the case, however, of those who said, ignorance has been destroyed by true knowledge of God, that wisdom shining like the sun reveals the supreme. Again, what is he saying? In the case of those, however, of those who said ignorance has been destroyed by true knowledge of God, that wisdom shining like the sun reveals the supreme. What is he saying? This is something I've already explained. Only through knowledge can you cut asunder the ignorance. Knowledge, through the light of knowledge, knowledge illuminates and you will be able to overcome the darkness. It illumines the darkness, which is nothing but the ignorance from your life. So he's saying in that case, however, of those very few people who have said, who said ignorance has been destroyed by true knowledge. And what knowledge is this? We are not talking about material worldly knowledge or your school, college that you learned, that is not the knowledge. We're talking about the real knowledge, the supreme truth. Even if you're learning Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam or Uddhav Gita, or you name it, any scriptures, Sat Charitra or even Guru Charitra, any of these things, all these scriptures are giving you knowledge. Knowledge about the truth in life, the true knowledge of God. Who is God? What is God all about? They're always teaching this. And how do you attain God? That is what they are teaching. Now, this knowledge is what is required to destroy your ignorance. And once that ignorance is destroyed, then that wisdom, the wisdom that you get shining like the sun, in that wisdom, see, knowledge gives you wisdom, the real knowledge. And that wisdom shining like the sun reveals the supreme. shining like the sun, reveals the supreme only through that wisdom, which is the divine knowledge, the true knowledge. In that wisdom is when you will be able to achieve God realization or self realization. This is not again such an easy thing to achieve, because till the time you have not gone through your purification of your heart, your mind, and surrender is not happened unto the lotus feet of the divine Lord or your real guru, you can't achieve this. It is next to impossible to attain God realization or self realization. That is why we see the self or the God has to be pleased with you, and that is why the self will reveal itself to you when the self is pleased with your bhakti, with your effort, with everything that you're doing in this world. And till the time that darkness from your heart is not gone, how will the divine Lord reveal himself to you? He is never going to reveal, because you need to become deserving for that realization or for that even experience of God. That is why we say, as is your faith, so are your experiences. Until the time you are so covered with that muck in your life, you are never going to realize God. Even that experience is never going to happen. Why? Because your mind is too strong. You think you know too much. You think this is what God is all about. You don't know what Guru Bhakti means. What is it means to worship the God. Nobody knows. We have always followed a ritualistic path. And when you continue to perform the rituals, you are not going to attain the real knowledge about God. You're going to be lost in that ritualistic life or whatever that you're following. I just gave an example of ritual because people do all sorts of rituals in this life. Why do they do? Because they think they want to get a good job, they want to get some money, they have, if their mother is died or father is died, they go perform all the rituals, which is rightfully required. But you don't go overboard and do things. People do so many different rituals. Why? Because they think their mother has to attain some heaven. Who are you going and giving anything? Please remember, it is the grace of the divine Lord that will relieve her. So you can't perform anything to give her any salvation. The salvation comes in a very different way altogether. So people believe, I'm going to, give her peace to her soul, or a lot of things. I'm going to enable a smooth passage. There is somebody who asked, will this person in my life, will they have a smooth passage? But my answer was, who are you to give anybody the smooth passage or not? It is none of your business. What, you're greater than God, is it? I want to facilitate, I want to make this happen. You're nobody. We are nobody. See, at the end of the day, the divine Lord knows what is right, what is wrong. If he has to give the smooth passage, he will give. If he doesn't have to, it will not. What makes you think just because you're a child, you're the person's son or a daughter, doesn't give you any right to say, I want to give this being a smooth passage. Please remember, the passage, the smooth passage or God realization or whatever is an individual, something that you have to achieve yourself. The one thing that you can do is when you walk the path, which is the path of spirituality, and if you get realization, then of course, yes, you are redeeming your 7 generation upwards and 7 generations downwards. That is the salvation you can give to your bodily associations, your fathers, your forefathers, your grandfathers, everybody. You can redeem. That's what your 7th generation, your upwards and downwards. That is what you can do. But it is not them who has to walk the path, it is you who has to walk the path. So without even walking the path, you want to follow certain different things which is not prescribed by the Lord, nor as per the Vedas and Shastras, or nor prescribed by your guru, then there is a problem. So what is the problem? The problem is that you are not going to achieve any God realization. Why? Because you're not following the instructions of the guru or the God. See, when you have your guru says, don't do these things. It is not going to help you. You have to immediately obey. And if you fail to obey, then you're on your own. Please remember, the guru is not going to accept any sin of yours and karma of yours. In this case, the Lord says he doesn't accept anybody's virtue or neither sins. He doesn't take anything on. But the guru does. That is why the guru's position is very great. He's greater than God himself. The divine Lord manifests in a form of a guru in the body, and as a guru, he takes on people's karmas. He suffers for other people. And please remember, it's a very difficult task. To be a guru is not a joke, especially a real master. He has to accept everybody the way they are. It's a very, very difficult position to be in. So here also he's saying, in the case, however, of those, the said ignorance has been destroyed by true knowledge of God, that wisdom shining like the sun reveals the supreme. So this God realization is not such an easy thing. We all think that, oh, I'm just devoted to my guru, which means I need to attain God realization. Really? It doesn't work like that. How much effort are you putting? How much sadhana are you doing? You don't follow a word which your guru says. You know, the greatest offering, the greatest sadhana that one can do is obeying and following the instructions of the guru to the highest of one's ability. But that is the basic thing you don't do. And people come and talk diamond dozen nonsense to the master. They think they know too much. First, shut your mouth and learn. When you meet the real master, please remember your knowledge is zero. Every single day when my Guruji teaches, he gives me knowledge, or he's giving me some insights, or he's teaching me or other disciples, I see that we are not even up to date with where the world is heading. We don't even know what is happening. He's a knowledge incarnate, and yet imagine he's constantly learning, he's giving that knowledge, he's teaching us. We are not even a dot, the dust of his feet also. To that level, we are ignorant being, and yet we open our big mouth and say, oh, I know this, I know this. The moment you say, I know, please remember, you fail miserably. You will not get even this much of knowledge. No knowledge will come to you. Learn to first shut up your mouth and then learn. Learn with humility, learn with humbleness. That is how knowledge will come. And this real knowledge, especially the real knowledge, is not so easy for itself to reveal. It can't shine till the time you have not surrendered yourself unto the lotus feet of the Guru. But the Lord is not saying for everyone, he's saying of all the people, there are very few people who said ignorance has been destroyed by true knowledge. One who has surrendered to the lotus feet of the Guru, has gone through this path of spirituality, that learning, and surrendered to him, has attained this supreme, has been able to attain that realization, that is the supreme, through the wisdom which is shining like the sun, revealing the supreme Lord, which is self-realization. You have understand the truth. So only those, but not everybody. That's what the Lord is teaching here. I hope you understand. So please, stop, thinking that you know too much. Always be humble and open to learning. The real knowledge comes only with the grace of the Divine Lord, not by anything else. And you can't come and talk some nonsense which you bring from your material worldly, experience. Your understanding from the material world is also very minimum. You have not understood because it's your mind who has created, that understanding that somebody is good, somebody is bad, I know this, I know that. You think you know too much. My Guruji will never, say a word to those people who will come and tell my Guruji itself, oh, this is what it is, this is what it is. It is their petty understanding. Who cares? He knows that everybody is ignorant personified. Please have that humility, surrender and be submissive for that little knowledge to shine, that wisdom to shine. Otherwise, you can never attain the supreme goal. That is what Lord Shri Krishna is saying. He's very clear. This is not for everybody. I hope you understood. So we'll stop here and we'll continue from the next verse, which is verse 17 onwards, in our next satsang. Thank you for joining the Bhagavad Gita Satsang, the way of life, as described by Lord Shri Krishna to Arjuna. Om Shri Mahaganapate Namaha, Om Shri Gurudev Datta, Om Shri Sachidananda Sadguru Sainath Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Digambara Digambara, Shripad Vallabha Digambara. Om Shri Krishna Gurunath Natha, Shri Guruve Namaha, Om Devi Durgaya Namaha, Om Shri Krishna Arpanam Namastu, Krishnam Vande Jagat Guru.